Hollywood is making fun of us for living the same life as what we're watching in the movies and not realizing that it's the same.
Mm.
So, so Twister is the movie that I'm referencing. Have you seen the new Twister movie?
I haven't seen the new one. No, I've only seen the old
Yeah.
one.
So the new one is, I guess this will be a little bit of a spoiler. Are you good with the
Oh,
spoiler?
well, welcome everyone to today's episode of TMI Advice You Didn't Want. We are diving in because, let's be honest, I live here in Florida and the hurricane is about to hit. And there's lots of questions around why are there so many hurricanes? And we're going to talk about that. So, and let's be honest, I don't know that much about this. So, Ashley, she's gonna have a good time with this one. So, but in case we haven't met, my name is Karen.
And my name is Ashley. And I don't know if I know a whole lot about it. I just kind of know more surface level stuff. But it's funny because I was at an appointment today and I don't know how it came up, but the hurricanes came up. And the lady that I was with, she's like, it's crazy because everyone knows the government's doing it. And so, like, you get the two sides, right? Where, like, it's like everyone knows it's the government. And like that's the only realm of reality. And then you have the other side that's like, what? Like, how could the government be doing this?
Yeah, because I'm
And
sitting over here going, yeah, but science? Like, so I'm going, what? And kind of scratching my head. So I'm like, yes. So we talked about this before we got on, and I said this before too, but I'm going to say it again. Yes, there are big corporations that are fucking with Mother Nature that should not be putting things into our oceans, into Mother Nature, and it's messing with our climate 100%. And it's creating a lot of these natural disasters that could be avoided. But my question is like, did they go out like when people are saying, oh no, the government created this hurricane? I'm like, well, are they going out with big fans and blowing? Like, what's going on? So I don't know. So I don't know. I'd love to hear what you are hearing and what you're experiencing, because for me, on a logic level, I'm going, I don't get it. What's happening?
well, and so the fun part too is like I always find that there's movies that are coming out at the same time as things are happening that are kind of like a nod to it.
Mm,
And I don't know if it's like a nod to it in a way that's like, wake the fuck up, this is happening.
hmm
I've watched like TikToks and stuff where they're like, oh yeah, it's a nod to it happening. It's not a nod to it happening, it's literally people making fun of us.
mm.
Like it's like Hollywood is making fun of us for living the same life as what we're watching in the movies and not realizing that it's the same.
Mm.
So so Twister is the movie that I'm referencing. Have you seen the new Twister movie?
I haven't seen the new one. No, I've only seen the old
Yeah.
one.
So the new one is, I guess this will be a little bit of a spoiler. Are you good with the spoiler?
Oh yeah, because if I'm being honest with you, I don't know the last time I watched a movie, so
Yeah,
I probably
sounds
won't
good.
watch it anyways.
This is a good movie. I liked it, but I also have like nostalgia to the first one. But anyways, and they talk about how they're able to control the weather and like when it rains and when it doesn't rain and all that kind of stuff. So they should be able to control twisters as well or tornadoes. And so to my knowledge, like, and I've never done like a deep dive into this, but it is science can control a sunny day and a rainy day. Like to my knowledge, that is a fact. And I
Okay.
could be completely fucking wrong, but that is like what I understand to be true. So there's companies that you can pay to say, have a guarantee a sunny day the next day and all that kind of stuff. And so they put stuff in the sky and then it disperses all the clouds so that you're guaranteed a sunny day. And then the same idea around chemtrails. So have you heard anything around like the chemtrail idea?
Mm-mm. No, no, no. Mm-mm.
Okay. So there's chemtrails that are like the like special clouds that look like airplanes going through the sky and that kind of stuff.
Okay, yeah,
And
yeah.
so it has been like the government has admitted that chemtrails are their way of trying to um I don't know how they word it. I would have to like actually read it, but like it's no longer a conspiracy theory. It's legitimate. The government has agreed that they
Been
do
there.
it.
Hmm.
Yeah, and so it can be things like they're spraying so that there's um less bugs or whatever. I don't know. But they've admitted that they are putting things in the air for our benefit.
Mm.
And so I have never done the deep dive of what it specifically is that is benefiting us by them doing this. But one of the things that is said is that it is controlling when it rains. And so for us where we live here in British Columbia, you'll see tons and tons of chemtrails in the sky. And the next day was supposed to be a sunny day, and the next day it's raining and pouring and miserable. And so that's what is said to be happening with chemtrails, is they're controlling that weather and all that kind of stuff.
Hmm.
And so there's an organization that is a legitimate organization, as far as I know, called HARP. Have you heard of HARP before?
Mm-mm, no. I
So,
probably haven't heard of any of this stuff.
yeah,
Because for me, like, I get the whole conspiracy. I'm just going to come out with this before we get too far. I get
yeah,
the whole conspiracy thing, but at the end of the day, the thing with conspiracy theories is they unfortunately create a lot of fear. And I
mhm,
never want to come at anything in a state of fear, right? And when I've noticed myself reading anything like this, it can be like, oh, is this really happening? And it can create a little bit of fear in me, and I don't want that, right? So for me, it's not about sticking my head in the sand, but it's more about what can I do to control all of this. The only thing
mhm,
I can do to control any of this is to control me and my
yeah,
emotions.
mhm,
Period. End of story. And we talk about this all the time on this podcast. And one of the most important things, if you want to change a culture, if you want to change what's happening in your government, the only thing you can control, the only thing you can change is your reaction, is your emotional reaction. And so for me, I'm like, okay, it's okay to like understand and know that this stuff happens and that there are companies that do this. But how do I change that? Well, I find people like you, people like me, and we increase our coherence. And I talk about heart coherence a lot. If you haven't looked into like Heart Math Institute, absolutely do that, because heart coherence is one of the most powerful things that you could possibly have at your disposal. Heart coherence can easily be, you can create heart coherence simply by breathing in for 5 seconds and breathing out for 5 seconds. That's going to create this coherent signature that your heart is putting out, because you're always putting out some sort of energetic signature.
mhm,
Your energetic signature, if you have a signature of fear, you are not coherent and you cannot change things on an energetic level. So for me, I say, let me look at what's going on in for me internally. Yes, I can see the news, I can see the things that are happening. I'm not sticking my head in the sand, but I'm asking myself, how deep do I really want to go with this? Is this beneficial for me and creating heart coherence for me? Because I know that if I'm coherent, I can create change, and that is the only way that I can create change. So I just want to say that before we get too deep, because I know you're gonna say some things that might be like, "Ooh, is that really happening for people?" And they're like, "Oh God, should I be scared?" And the answer is no. Please don't be scared. That isn't going to help our planet at all. It's
mhm,
helpful to understand that there are things that can be done around you, but it's also important to understand that we are more powerful than any physical thing, right? We've created those physical things. So
yeah,
we have that power over those things. So,
yeah.
anyways,
Well,
soapbox
and yeah,
soapbox down.
but I completely agree with you. I do not think that this is coming from a place of fear or
No,
any of that
yeah.
kind of stuff. But I think it's important to talk about because with the limited research I've done, I do think it's legitimate. I also think that if we talk about it and more people are aware of it, then maybe more people will stand against it,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe that can create some change. Because if no one knows it's happening, there's never going to be any type of change at all. And like that goes with so many things. Like it's a
100%.
matter of talking about it, bringing awareness to it, and not from a fearful place, but just of awareness.
Mm-hmm.
And then same with putting your money in the right places too.
Yes,
It's like
100%.
what are you supporting when you purchase that thing?
Mm-hmm.
And that kind of stuff. And that can open another different kind of worms. But yeah, so there is an organization, to my knowledge, it is a NASA organization, and they are experimenting with what they can control.
Mm-hmm.
And in a lot of ways, I think they're playing God. It's kind of sad almost for
Mm-hmm.
me because it's not, I don't feel fearful. I think that um before we get to too much harm, we will wake up and we will fight against it before too much harm is done. But things like the Northern Lights, have
Mm-hmm.
you guys ever
Yeah.
experienced that? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yep.
So a lot of people are saying that the Northern Lights are being man-made now.
Mm-hmm.
Like this
Yeah.
company is experimenting with Northern Lights. And it just so happens that when they are experimenting with creating these Northern Lights, it is at the same time that there's big, big storms happening. And so the two are going kind of hand in hand. And so it's more so public knowledge that the Northern Lights are being man-made, and then not as much so like the tragedies that are happening like specifically right now in North America, but they're happening at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like when you play with one thing, it affects something else, especially when you're messing around with our environment,
Mm-hmm.
like the moon is so powerful, it creates the tides and controls the tides. And so then if you're mimicking that kind of stuff of messing with our atmosphere and messing with our storms and our skies and all that kind of stuff, like what kind of ramifications is that going to have? So, yeah, there's a lot of talk around that and how scientists are experimenting and creating these tragedies unknowingly. Like they're messing with the Northern Lights and then it's leading to a more horrible hurricane or whatever it is at the time. Um, so that's one theory. Twister talks about how these twisters are happening and then people are buying the land. These rich, big, big guys are coming in and buying the land for super cheap because it's destroyed.
Mm-hmm.
People are in a vulnerable state and all that. And so there's a lot of people talking about how where the hurricanes are coming through and where the flooding has happened, that all is on very desired land that people are trying to buy up. And so they're purposefully destroying it so that they can purchase it. And that ties into, and like that's the thing that makes me like, I'm very surface level, but there's so many little like connections
Mm-hmm.
and like the pieces just fit, like where Bill Gates is buying up tons of farmland and trying to monopolize um, and have it so that he can control where the protein sources are coming from and control where our health care is coming from and all that kind of stuff. So it's really interesting how it all kind of like fits together, but it is also not all proven fact. There's a lot of like gray area, if you
Mm-hmm.
would.
Sure, sure, sure.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
So, one experiment that I know is quite effective and I have been a part of myself when it comes to experimenting with the earth.
Mhm.
Dr. Joe Dispenza has every so often he does something called Walk for the World. If you've
Mhm.
never done anything with Dr. Joe Dispenza, I highly recommend that you check this out. You can go to his website, and I think there's going to be another one coming up here in October. I don't remember the date off the top of my head, but Um, Walk for the World, basically, Dr. Joe created a walking meditation that is beautiful. Like, it's super beautiful. And I've done it a few times. And basically, there's this call to the people within the community, even outside the community, doesn't matter. Even if you've never meditated before, you can absolutely do this. But to at a certain time and a certain day to do this walking meditation as a whole, as a collective, right?
Mhm.
And one thing that they really wanted to do was they wanted to see, is there any kind of change that's happening to the earth whenever we do this? And so they were kind of looking at the Schumann resonance too. They were looking to see, is there any kind of change that's happening when we do this? And the answer was, yeah, we are seeing a spike in the Schumann resonance after we create this walk for the world meditation. I can't go into too much detail other than that, but the thing that I was talking about before with like heart coherence, getting that collective heart coherence and sending that love to our planet and to all of the inhabitants, whether it's people, animals, plants, whatever, when you're sending that kind of love to Mother Nature, there is an effect. There is something that is happening, right? And um, the thing to remember with all of this stuff, when somebody is out there trying to control the weather, when they're trying to control food source, when they're trying to control whatever it is that they're trying to control, remember that they are doing that in a very greedy frequency many times. Greed
Mhm.
is not higher than love. It's impossible for that frequency to be higher than love.
Mhm.
Truly impossible. And so when you are practicing things like prayer, meditation, you're coming together and you're loving on people, you're loving on Mother Earth, you're loving on whatever, that
Mhm.
frequency, when it's coherent, will always overcome anything that is happening in, as far as natural disasters, as far as like what's going on with our food. And that's the reason that I'm like, yes, know what's going on, but also remember that you're more powerful, because you really are way more unlimited than you could ever know, especially if you are looking at a situation where somebody is coming at something through greed or whatever could possibly make somebody want to do that. That's pretty harmful, right? But love doesn't do that. It's like love can't even see that. It's not even a part of its thought process to create something like a hurricane or a natural disaster on purpose, right? Create this mass chaos with people where they're afraid, right? That's really the most important thing to remember with all of this, I think, is that when you can get a community scared, you can
Yeah.
control them. But if you
Mhm.
can't get them scared, if that community is operating out of love, then you can't do anything. Somebody that's coming in at a lower frequency of hate, greed, parasite of any kind, there's no way that you can overcome that kind of frequency, that love frequency, with this other frequency that's just so harmful and so hateful. So
Mhm.
that's the thing that's the most important to remember, is that if you want to create change, know that's happening, but if you want to create change, really raise your frequency. Step out of the hate and step into, how can I love in this situation? Ask yourself. I ask myself this constantly. And when I find myself in a situation, easiest place for me to say where I struggle with the most is when I go to the hospital, right? Because there is a lot of very low level frequency emotions that happen at the hospital. And so
Mhm.
when I notice myself stepping into that frequency, and I notice that it's happening, I say, wait a minute, how can I look at this differently? Well, I can look at that person and say, you know what? They're operating at their current state of what they're currently aware of in their life. And I can let this go. I can love them through it. And when I do that, I can feel a shift in myself. I feel it's a shift in energy. It's a shift in how you perceive a situation. That's really what's important. Seeing a situation for what it really is, not as how you are if you're operating in a state of fear or overwhelm or anxiety or whatever it is that you want to put in there. So, creating change with stuff like this, yes, no, it's happening, but then organize a group of people that maybe you want to pray for the planet. Maybe you want to pray for our leaders. Maybe you want to meditate with a group of people. I don't care what you do, it doesn't matter. But when you do those things as a group, you are way more powerful than anything, really, truly, because you're creating that where two or more are gathered. You're creating this powerhouse of energy that is way more powerful than anything outside of you.
Mhm. Yeah, and I think that that's the part like to remember is to not go into a fearful place and to not get obsessed with it, but also be very conscious of it, just like put a stop to it too,
Mhm.
because our frequencies will change things for sure.
Mhm.
But we do also have to use our voices because we are in a 3D world as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, the thing to remember too, I think when you're using your voice is to use it in a place of love.
Hmm.
So that's something that I see is difficult for not only myself, but for others as well. When you are feeling like you're being oppressed in some way, shape, or form, using your voice can come out in a not so kind manner. And even if it is coming out kind, how are you actually feeling inside? Because the feeling inside is what creates the change or doesn't create the change. So
Hmm.
if you're noticing something around you and you're like, I really want to speak up against this, I don't think that this is right, really spend some time with your energy before you speak. That's
Yeah.
really, really so important. I was actually, you were talking about the floods and stuff. I think it was in North Carolina. I saw this guy who lives in North Carolina, and he was very much using his voice, and he was using it in a way of anger, right?
Mhm.
So I don't see anything wrong with showing emotion like anger. Yes, let's tell people that we're upset, we're angry, but then also realize that we got to ask ourselves how long do we want to stay like that, because you can't truly create the shift if you're staying in an angry state.
Mhm.
So I'm watching this guy on TikTok, and he's talking about what you just talked about, where the lands are flooded and people are coming in and buying it up. And he's pissed off, right? He pissed off because this is like what he's seeing is happening. So he's speaking out against it. I didn't actually go to his page to see, did he continue in that frequency of anger, or did he flip it and say, okay, how can I create change?
Yeah.
Creating change doesn't mean that I stay angry. Creating change means that I ask myself, how do I want to feel? How do I want to love? And it comes down to loving the people that feel unlovable. That is not easy. And I don't care what religion you're in or what anything. Pretty much all religions talk about loving all people, right? Like it's pretty common throughout. And it's even loving those unlovables that you feel like, how could I possibly love that person? But I think that that's the key. Like when we figure that out, when we can look at somebody that we absolutely despise, why would you try and like hurt Mother Earth? Why would you do this? When we can figure out how to love them, that's when we really can truly love, first of all, ourselves, and then love Mother Earth as well, because we're raising that vibration by staying in that love. And this is not easy, okay? I am not saying all of this because I know exactly how to do this, because yes, I get it. I fall into a lot of states of anger, fear, anxiety also. Like this is not an easy task, but it's just noticing. I think really at the end of the day it's noticing, what was my reaction? How did that reaction feel? Did it actually create the change that I wanted to create? And what emotion will actually create the change that I want to create? And how do I stay there as long as possible?
Mhm.
It's a journey, friends. It's a journey.
Well, and anger and passion are very, very similar. And so
Yeah.
it's a very easy shift over to that for sure.
Hmm.
But yeah, it's really because if you get too much into the weeds of any of this, like everything is awful.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
and so it's really about like what can I do and what can I control and where is my place in this? And is there a place for me in this? Like for me, I personally feel like um my place is to bring awareness, but I don't feel like it's my place to deep dive and know everything about it.
Yeah.
I have no interest in it. But I am interested in what is going on a surface level so that there's that awareness. And I do believe we're stronger. And like for me, living in British Columbia, we don't have floods or hurricanes, we have forest fires.
Yeah.
And I've done a lot of energy work around like forest fires, and I do think that it has made a difference.
Hmm.
And I do believe that. I also do believe that whether it was purposeful or just negligence that resulted in the fires that we had, the government is to blame. And I don't have anger around that. I have curiosity would be my term, is I will post things trying to spark curiosity in other people to think, well, um, maybe there is a world where like this happened, Maybe there is a world where the government needs to be held responsible. Maybe I have to think about this when I vote. Maybe I have to bring this to my MLA's attention. Oh, MLA is a very Canadian term.
Yeah.
It's yeah, it's like your Senate.
Mm.
So like those kind of things. And so I do feel like I have that pull to bring awareness. And I feel like I have that in every area of my life. Like I don't feel like I am a person that has a very, very niche purpose. I feel like I have a very broad range where I just want to bring awareness to things that are happening and not be the angry, shouting, crazy person. But I do think there is a time and place
Hmm.
to be that person. I want to be the person that's like, hey, maybe that isn't right, and hey, maybe there is a better way to go about this,
Hmm.
and just bring that awareness and curiosity to it. And so that's how I feel with all of this is I would like to bring awareness to natural disasters and how natural are they? And maybe we need to do something different and all of that. But yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And at the end of the day, it really is, um, yes, inform yourself, as I said, but also really paying attention to what you're putting out there at all times. So, and there was something else you said, and I had something great to add, and I lost it. Like, that happens, it's gone. So, but really, like, oh, that's what it was. So, I remember when you were having the forest fires, I think it was last year, and you were talking about how on social media, you couldn't access certain news stations or whatever. You want to talk about that? Because I only heard secondhand. So firsthand though what was going on. So talk about that for a second.
Well, that's the really crazy thing. And so a lot of this kind of stuff is like when natural disasters are happening, it it feels like there's often something else playing a role. So
Mm-hmm.
like I don't know, you would know living in Florida how bad hurricanes are every single year, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so at our distance, which is quite like all the way across North America, it seems like there's a good chance that there's more natural disasters happening right now in an election year than there normally is.
Yeah, I don't know. We've had two hurricanes, and that's not unusual at this time of year. So
Yeah.
I don't
So,
know.
and that's what people are saying is that there's more natural disasters in election years than there normally is. because it distracts people
Mm.
and gets them
Gets them
thinking
fearful.
about, yeah, it gets them thinking about different things. So they're focused on different things, focused on different solutions, and their voting changes
Mm.
because of that. Um, and so, yeah, so there's that. But anyways, so with our prime minister, because that's what we have in Canada, um, he was in charge during COVID, and it was a crapshoot. Like
Mm.
we had like the truckers march, we had people locked up, we had so many crazy fucking things happen. And so his solution, whether this was the reason or not, I don't know what the reason was. We are not allowed to view news on social media.
Mm.
And so because of like the VPN, everything is blocked for us. So if me and you both go to CNN, it will say you cannot access this page based off of your location,
Mm.
and you'll be able to see everything.
Mm. Yeah.
And
See.
so, yeah, so for us, there's forest fires, there's evacuations, there's evacuation alerts, there's all these things, and you usually know because of the news.
Mm.
And you can't access it through any social media platform. So the only way, which is not the end of the world, but the only way you can actually see anything is to go directly to CNN's website. But it kind of is weird in the sense that everyone's always on Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, you know?
Mm.
And so I usually would find out that my area was evacuated because I was on Facebook and I saw it. Like that would literally be like when we had the forest fire the year previously, I knew I was on evacuation alert because of Facebook.
Mm.
And now we don't have access to that information, and
Mm.
we're not allowed to have any kind of news on Facebook, any type of social media.
Mm. Yeah.
So it really makes the voices very quiet. And when there is reason for concern, or when you're coming up on an election, or when people are rioting against the government, it shuts a lot down fast. And so it's really benefiting the government more than the people,
Mm. Yeah.
significantly
Yeah.
more. Yeah.
Yeah. So, that whenever you said that last year, I remember thinking that is interesting because they're controlling the way that you consume information.
Yeah.
But really, if you look at all news, all
Yeah.
news tends to control how we consume information.
Yeah.
Um, I know with this hurricane that's coming our way here in Florida, if you look at the national weather channel or whatever, it's gonna predict it's way worse than it actually is. Like
Mm,
I had many people reach out to me today, like, "Are you okay?" And I literally look outside and I'm like, "It's not even windy out there. Like nothing's happening right now." And people are like, "Oh my God, are you okay?" It's like nothing's happening, guys. Like it'll be
yeah.
here tomorrow, and when it hits me in Orlando, it'll probably be a category 2. That's
Yeah.
not a big deal. I mean, the worst that we had was a couple years ago, we had Irma. Irma, when it hit, was, I think it was a category 5. And when it hit us in Orlando, it was a category 3. That was a little scary, I'm not going to lie to you, because it's
Mm,
really, really windy. That's really the experience that you have. It's just a lot of wind. And it's like, whoa, how is this gonna hold up, you know? So, but a category 2, I'm not worried. Like, I've been through way worse. So, and I also had to like, my husband and I, we've kind of been like for each other, kind of, how you doing? How you feeling? Like what's going on? He's kind of
yeah.
having more intrusive thoughts that he's giving voice to than I am, cuz for me I'm like, you know what? It's going to be fine. We've always been fine before. So, but for him, he's like, I'm combating these intrusive thoughts. And so he's like, when I notice them come up, I notice them and I say, I don't need to keep thinking like this. It's okay. Like,
Mhm.
for an example is we have a couple trees in our front yard, and one of them overhangs our house. And like the intrusive thought is, oh, what if something happens with that tree? And it's like, why do we need to sit here and worry about things that haven't even happened yet? Like,
Mhm.
we don't need to do that. That's just putting us into a state of fear which puts us into a place where we're going to create more fear, right? Like when you, what you're feeling is what you're going to continue to create. And he knows that. And that's the reason he's telling me, like, this is how I'm feeling. This is what I'm doing with it. I'm telling myself to stop because it's not helpful. Like, I'm telling
Yeah.
myself other things, like, it always works out for us. And so he's noticing and then trying to break the habit, because it's a habit of being in a state of fear. We create these habits of being in a state of anxiety, fear, whatever. And we go back to it when our body's like, you haven't felt this way in a hot second. You want to feel
Mhm.
some fear? So our
Yeah.
body sends a surge of fear to our brain. Our brain creates an image of what that fear looks like with whatever anxious thought we want to have. And it sends it back down to our body and it goes, oh yeah, that's the chemical I wanted. That's the hit. I'm feeling fearful and I'm loving it because this is what I'm used to. Right? Our
Yeah.
body wants to, our brain and our body want to continue to have those similar, familiar chemicals running through them because that's
Yeah.
what we've told our body and our brain that we want to feel. And
Mhm.
so breaking that habit means noticing that you're in that pattern and
Mhm.
then inserting either a different thought, telling yourself, hey, I can stop. This hasn't really happened yet. I'm thinking in the future or I'm thinking in the past. And I can't create if I'm thinking in the future or the past, right? The only place to actually create is from the present moment. And how am I actually feeling at my core? How do I actually feel about being a creator? Well, I feel pretty good about being a creator. So I'd rather hang out with that feeling than
Yeah.
hang out in this feeling of fear for the future or anxiety of anything that's happened in the past, right? So, yeah. So, all good things. All good things.
Yes.
So I think with that we can kind of wrap this one up. This was a good chat. So friends, if you are listening to us on Facebook, where'd that come from? YouTube. I don't put this on Facebook. I don't like Facebook. If you're listening to us or watching us on YouTube, go ahead and subscribe, give us a like, and leave your comments. Let us know what your thoughts are. And if you're listening on your favorite podcast host, go ahead and leave us a 5-star. And once again, leave us comments and let us know your thoughts. So with that, we're going to call TMI Advice You Didn't Want a wrap for today. See everyone next time. Thanks so much for watching. Click on one of the videos below to continue hanging out with us, and don't forget to subscribe.